Yeah, it's 4:05. Yeah, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. So I'm Akim and I'll be the moderator for today. So the topic for today is I welcome you all to this session actually. So today we'll be looking at building an HR dashboard using Excel. And our speaker for today is going to be one of my colleagues, Tolulope Olowookere. Yeah, so this session is also sponsored by your Biz Edge and MHS Analytics. So your Biz Edge, we are your very strong plug for learning Excel, Power BI, financial modeling, and SQL. Yeah, so we have a company in Canada, which is MHS Analytics. It's just like your Biz Edge, but then it's for folks in North America, Canada, America, Mexico, and So if you have anyone over there, you can refer us. Yeah, so about our speaker for today, Tolulope Olowookere. So Tolulope is open-minded, curious, and she's passionate about data science and data analytics. And she has over 3 years of experience working with data as a BI analyst. And she has a strong desire to utilize her skill set for a more suitable future. So a more sustainable future, rather. She's data oriented and she's able to integrate diverse data into compelling story. She's skillful in the use of data analytics and data visualization tools such as Excel, SQL, Tableau, and Power BI. Yeah, so to connect with Tolu, I'll be pasting our LinkedIn profile link to the comment section. Sorry, to the chat section rather. Yeah, so over to Tolu. Let's feed us with some exciting knowledge today. So Tolu, over to you.
Thank you so much, Hakim, for the warm welcome. Welcome once again, everybody. Thank you for being my guest today. So today we're going to be talking about the topic HR that concerns HR analytics. That is building a HR dashboard using Microsoft Excel. So the whole essence of this is just to show us how to utilize some functions, pivot table to derive insights from HR data. So as data analysts, we work with different types of data, but this data we're going to be working on today is going to be focused on HR. I'd like this session to be interactive. So if you have any questions, you can drop them in the comments. Sorry, in the chat box, and I would start very soon. So we'll be using Excel. I'll share my screen and we'll just go ahead with the data I have with me. So once you can see my screen, Hakim, please let me know.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, so I can see your screen from my own end.
Okay. Okay, so I can go ahead. So I have this data that speaks to the HR data of an organization. Is fictitious, it's not real, or it speaks to something that we should be familiar with. So I have gender, the columns I have gender, employee, hire date, date of birth, today's date, age description, length of service range, location, department, job grade, and status. So what I'm going to do, I did some functions, I performed some functionalities here already, but I would like to delete them so that we can work together. So for example, I have the original data came with just employee, gender, hire date, date of birth, and then yeah. I'm sorry, I'm trying. It came with just employee, gender, hire date, date of birth, and this other date. So all these ones are empty, were derived from the information we already have. So first of all, we'll have to work with some of the date functions that we may or may not be familiar with. So I'm just going to be as clear as possible for people that don't or not don't usually use these functions. So that the function we use. So what I'm trying to achieve here now is I want to find the dates of the age. And how do I find someone's age? In Excel, there are different functions we can use. Usually, by default, someone will just go and say something like, to always start a function or a formula in Excel, you must start with the equal to sign. You can just say equal to date of birth minus the birth date, and you say enter. And what happens is that it gives you, equal to the date of birth or today's date. So I can just use today's date is, let me start with the today's date. So there's a function we usually use to derive today's date, and it's very dynamic because once you use that function, even if I open my Excel tomorrow, it's going to show me tomorrow's date as today's date, and that's the equal to today function. So once you type in equal to today, you open and close the bracket and click on enter, and it gives you today's date. So in order for me to find the age of the person, usually I will say equal to these dates minus the date of birth, and it's to give me a number. Yes, it's giving me a number, but what number is this? The different this age is giving me now is a number of days between the today's date and the date of birth, but that's not what we want. So a better and more efficient way to achieve to get age is to use a function called dates diff. So it gives a difference between dates. So I just type in dates diff. So once I type in dates diff, it asks me what date am I different and what difference do I want to find between two dates, and that's between this date and this date. Then the next argument you're going to type in is what part of the date do you want? So do you want the days between or the months between or the year between? So in this case, because it's age we're talking about, we just want the difference in the year. And then I close my bracket. That's why I put Y as my year. So it recognizes Y as year, M as month, and D as date. So when I click on what's happening, enter. Please let me just do it again.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Tolu. Sorry, someone is asking if there is a link to the data so they can practice with you as you're going.
Oh, sorry about that. I would share the link. Just give me a minute. Let me share the link.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Or I can just share the raw data. I'll drop it in the chat.
Okay, that works too.
Please just give me a minute.
All right, yeah, no problem.
Okay, so I've dropped the link in the chat. We'll just continue from where we were.
All right, thank you very
Okay.
much. So if you need the link to the data, you can check the chat box. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Okay, so I was trying to calculate. Okay, should I wait for people to open up? Let's just go on. You can just ask me questions as we go on. I was trying to use the date diff function. So I said date diff. It's quite a new function. So difference between this date and this, that's the person today's date and the person's birthday or date of birth. And I want it to be, what's happening? It should be, if there's a formatting error happening here, please just give me a minute also. Dates, the difference in the date. So this minus this y, something wrong. I think I'm making a mistake. You should be this date first, then this date. Okay. So I see where my error is coming from. So it's the date of birth first. That's the older date, comma, the newer date, then the type of difference you want. In this case, we want year. So that's why it's showing us this person is 34 years. I can just spill the formula down and it populates. Another method we can use, there's another date function that can be used to achieve this same one, and it's called year frac. So I'll just try that. Equal to year frac, that's year frac. Then the start date, for example, is this date, and the end date is this date. Then the basis now. So this year frac is usually used for different types of dates you're trying to achieve. If you use actual and actual, it means that if the year has 365 days, it will calculate 365. If it has 366, it will calculate it based on the 366 days. So this is what we actually want. But there are sometimes that some people may want it to calculate the number of years. I mean, the dates by 360 or 365. So it depends on what you're using. So it's actual I'm using. So I type in 1 and I close my bracket and I say enter. The only thing about this year frac is that it gives you the value in percentage, or it has decimals. So what you do in this case, you can wrap a function in front. You can use the trunc function to wrap it in front and just close the bracket at the end and click on enter. So it gives you the age. So I don't know which formula or function do you prefer, but both of them work if you understand what both of them do. So I think I think we should vote in the comment section which one should we use. Should we go for date if, or should we go for year frac? I'm waiting for your response. Someone's asking why the first one was giving num error. Thank you for that question. So why it was giving num error was because I was putting the latest dates first. So it should be the oldest dates, that's earliest dates, then comma the current date or earliest date. Sorry, most current dates, yes. Earliest date is the oldest date, and then most current date. That's why if you switch this, if you put E2 and then D2, it will give you a num error. So because you cannot like subtract small from big, the function does not work in that way. I hope that answers your question. Okay, we'll continue from there. I don't know if anybody has given me any response in the comment section. So we said we should go with
someone is saying date diff.
Which date
It's faster to use. Yeah.
So I was asking, I think date diff is faster anyways.
Yeah,
I
that was
agree
what
with you.
they said. Yeah.
So date diff wins in this case. So I'll just populate it to the end throughout. So the next thing now is the age description. In this case, I want to like categorize the age of my workforce. I want to know if they are millennials, if they are Generation Y, baby boomers, Gen Z, and stuff like that. So in this case, we will need to use an if statement. And to do that, it's quite easy. If remember to start a function in Excel, you have to start with the equal to sign. So equal to if. So because I have, for example, now I have multiple criteria or multiple things I want to multiple variables or multiple criteria I need to solve for, I have to use the if else. If it's just two, I can use if alone. But with if else, I can use multiple multiple criteria. What I mean is that if it was just if, so for example, you see just logical test, value if true, value if false. But with if else, you see like logical test one, value if true one, and the list goes on. So if you have more than one logical test, you can use if else. In this case, I have more. And what I'm trying to do here is that I want to categorize the ages from what I have. So what I'm going to do is that if you're between 0, of course you can't be 0 in the workforce, but between, let me say, 18 and 25, I want you to be classified as Gen Z. If you're between anything from 26 to 35, I want you to be classified as a millennial. And then if you're less than 45, Generation Y, and the list goes on. So let's work together. So with the if statement, remember it's the age we're working with, so we have to refer to this cell. So if F2 is less than or equal to 25 years. Now, because it's a range and we have, remember I said 18 to 25, it's always advisable to use the upper bound because that's how you can know it's less than or equal, like 25 or lower. If this is the case, what should it give us? It should give us a description like Gen Z, for example. That's the first logical test. So now, if you look at the argument, for the second logical test now, we want anybody that means if F2 is less than or equal to 35 years, for example, we'll say he's a millennial. Millennial. You have to put anything in text within your function or formula in double quotes. Then if this person's age, whatever it finds in this cell anyways, if it is less than or equal to 45, we'll classify him as, let's call him a Generation Y. I think that's what they call them. I'll just say Gen Y. Then if that same age is less than or equal to 55, we'll call them Gen X, right? In caps lock. Then the last one, if you can either put, at this point now, you know the retirement age is 60. So anything above like 56, they are just in one category. In this case, they are baby boomers. So we don't expect anybody to be 70 and still working. So you can either do two things here. You can either just type in true. And the essence of typing in this true is that if all these other logical tests result in false, then true, and the only thing left is this last what will I call it? This last logical test I want to run. What will we give them? We can give them if this age, sorry, mistake, true, then we can say, can call them in this case baby boomers. If this true may be confusing to you, our advice, you don't use true. Instead, use another logical test. That is if F2, in this case, is greater or equal to 56. So like from 56 and above, let's call them baby boomers. And then we say enter. So it's telling us that this guy is 34 and he's a millennial because from the formula we wrote, if it's less than 35 or less than equal to 35, we should call him a millennial. That's why he's a millennial. We have the millennial answer there. So I just hope we get that. Populate my formula down and go through. So someone who is 36 is generation Y because it's less than 45 but greater than 35. So once you have a range, always go with the upper bound ranging if statements. So that works. The next thing I want to find out is the length of service. So in this case, how many years have they been working for? So we have, remember we have higher dates and we have today's date. So we want to know how long they've been working because their employees, remember the employee data we're working with. So to get that, you see, we can also use date diff or the FRAC. So since we've agreed on date diff, we're going to find the difference between these dates. That's when he was hired, and then today's date. And we want it to be in years. We want to know how long the person has been with us. So this person has worked for 17 years. Wow. I think we are doing something right for someone to stay with us for 17 years. Do you agree? Okay. I think that was straightforward. See the same thing I did with the age. It just shows how long the person has worked with us. Higher dates versus and today's dates. That's what we used to get 17. Then the LOS range. LOS means length of service. So the length of service range. I also want to use if statements here also. So in this case, if you've worked with us from like anything less than 3 years, we'll call it, let's say we'll call it 0 to 3. Anything less than 4 years, we'll call it 4 to 7. We'll give it a range. So we want to know the distribution of how long people have stayed with us. So in this case too, we have to use the if statement. So equal to if S in this case, because we have lots of logical tests that we want to test. If the value here is less than or equal to 3, this person just is the recent employee. Let's just describe that range as 0 to 3 years. Comma, close your double quotes and comma. The second test is if this person also has stayed with us less than or equal to 7 years. Now I want you to go from the band of or the range of 4 to 7. Do you know this like mid-management? No, sorry. It's got in some companies it can be mid-management, can be management level. It depends on the company structure anyways. But 0 to 3 at least, people still classify it as maybe entry level. Then once if it's less than 7, we want to call it 4 to 7 years. This is the range we want to give. I can just use YRF so it doesn't take too much. Sorry. 4 to 7 years. And I close my quote. The next logical test is if this value here is less than or equal to 14, That's between 8 and 14 in this case. Let's call it 8 to 14 years. What did I type? 8 to 14 years. And the last one, if the value is greater than or equal to 15, that's from 15 and above. Let's just call it 15 and above. You know, this kind of data, we can use it to like do 15 and above. We can use it to do like employee appreciation and stuff like that. So once I've written this if statement now, I will be able to determine how long this person has stayed. Yeah, this one is correct because he has been with us for 17 years, so it's between 15 and above. Then we have others in that range. So I think with this, we have done justice to this data. So the next step we have to do is to start creating our charts. So let me just see if we have any.
Yeah, someone is asking if you could work on volume of your audio.
Yeah. Okay. I hope you can hear me. But Hakim, can you hear me clearly?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly. It's actually very clear at my end.
Okay. So I don't know. Maybe it could be his network, but I will just put the mic at my end in my mouth, if that will work.
Thank you. Yeah.
You're welcome. Okay, so we're done with if statements and using bit functions in this case. The next thing we will do is to start creating our dashboard. But before we start, there are some steps we have to take. So first things first, we will have to create pivot tables. Remember, pivot tables, if you were here in my last session, we talked about pivot tables. I remember I said pivot table helps you do summarize. It helps you summarize your data, group your data, and gives you insights quickly from your data. So with all these functions we've worked with, we can easily create a pivot table. And if you remember, the first step in creating a pivot table is always to convert your range or your data to a table, to an Excel table. And to do that, you can click within anywhere in your data and use the shortcut key Control T, and then it highlights, you see these green dotted lines around your data, and it's asking if you want to create a table. In this case, yes, your table has headers. So I know that my table has headers and I'm comfortable with it. I just say, okay. It changes the way it looks a bit. So if you're not comfortable with this kind of design, you can just go with something simple like this. So once you've done this, you are good to go. You can name your table because there's sometimes that you may have multiple tables within your data and you'll be confused with which one is table 1, table 2, or whatnot. So I always advise people to name their table. So I've named mine. I named it employee data. This table name does not accept space. So if you need to put space, I'll advise you use an underscore. So this is how you can name your table. So next thing, you can either just come here at the top of the table design tab, you see summarize the pivot table, or you can go to the insert tab and then choose pivot table and say insert pivot table from table or range. Now it already sees that because you're within this sheet, this is your table. And it names, remember we named the table employee data, and then I say, okay, give me my pivot table or pivot table in a new sheet. So once I have my pivot table, remember, I'll have this, like call it a dialog box, and I have all my fields to the right side of my pivot table. So what we'll have to do now is I will create multiple pivot tables from the data to help us understand our data better. So the first one we'll do, we want to see, for example, the age description or distribution across the workforce I'm working with. So I'll put the age under rows. Remember that anything that you want to calculate, like you want to do any form of arithmetic on, you drop it under the values in values field here. So employee data, employee ID, I'm dropping it under these values because I want to count the number of employees. Automatically, it gives you some, but you can always change this. Just click on it, then click on value field settings, then you choose count instead of sum, because I want to count how many employees are baby boomers, Gen Z, millennials, and the rest. So these are the number, this is the distribution of my employees. So I can just call, instead of writing count of employee ID, I can just call it just number of employees. So this works. So once I've created this pivot table and I'm good, I can create multiple pivot tables just by copying this one. I highlighted the whole pivot table and pasting. So I'll just paste it below this place now. So I have double duplicates. So I'm not pasting only values, I'm pasting everything. So be cautious of that also. Next thing, I want to know, for example, the distribution or the length of service range. So I want to know how many people have stayed the longest, how many people have stayed the least. So this is the distribution of my data. So I have people 0 to 3 years, 14 people, 15 and above, 41 people, 47 years, 22 people, and stuff like that. So this one works. Another thing I also want to see, I'll just paste, remember I copied the table then, I'll just paste it here again. The next thing I want to see is a distribution of the department. So I can just drop in the department. I want to know how many people do we have across departments. So we know which departments need more staff and things like that. Okay, that works. The next thing I also want to do is for location. So I'll just paste my pivot table again. I just did Control V to do that, and then I'll remove. So to remove any field, you can just drag it and drop it. It takes it out. I will drop in location in this case. So how many staff do we have across board, across these countries? Sorry, these states that we operate within Nigeria. Okay, as we move on, we'll be maybe we might need to create more tables if possible. If needed. Okay. So with the first table, I always advise people to name their pivot tables because it just helps you with better, like you don't have problems later on. And how do you name them? Once you click on the pivot table, you see two tabs, pivot table analyze and design. I'm clicking on analyze, and now I'm going to change the name from pivot table 14 to this one speaks to age distribution. So I just call it age I can just say age dist. I know what it means. This one speaks to length of service. So I can change the name from pivot table 15 to length of service. I know what it means. This one speaks to the departments. So I can just do departments. This one speaks to location. And I can just do something like location. Another thing we would even love to do is to find another additional, we can add another additional table. So, sorry, Control C. I'll just place one here beside it. And in this case, I want to find, or I want to determine what's the total number of employees. So I'll just remove this age distribution I had here. My total number of employees is 124. But if you go back to the data, you will notice that I have 3 types of employees, like employees that have retired, that are contract-based, and they are currently employed. So we can use slicers to filter the data, or yes, I think that will just be the best thing to do. So I'll just put status beside this. So I know the status by number of people that have retired. So I have now. What do I want to do? I want to filter this data. Sorry. To give me just employed, because okay, employed and contract, because contract is still a form of employment, but they can leave at any time. So I don't want to count the people that have retired. So I know I have 119 people that we're working with. Another good metrics that we might need may also be the average, what's it called? The average length of service. So I'll just copy this length of service pivot table and paste it here. And then I'll remove the length of service. And I'll put length of service here, and I'll put length of service. So now I want to find the average. So I remove this number of employees also. So I just put the length of service under the values. It's giving me some. So I'll change it to count because it's, yeah. Still counting the rows. Length of service. Sorry. I just need to put the length of service in the rows. And I'll find I'm supposed to find the average. I don't know why I've forgotten how I arrived at this at that time. Another thing we can do is to we can also do it in another method. So let me try something else. If I go on, let me just name this pivot table, and this pivot table speaks to number of employees. So I have number of employees. This works. You can also do, I think, looking at my time, and it's almost time up. So we've never started building the pivot table. So let's just go ahead. The next thing I'll name this table sheet pivot table. So I'll just call it pivot table. The next thing, I have to create a new table, or a new sheet rather. I will call it maybe dashboard or something. Let's call it dashboard. So to create a dashboard, we have to have like an idea of what we want our final product or final visual to look like. First things first, it's best practice to always put off the grid lines. So you go to the view tab and click on grid lines to put these grid lines off. Another thing you can do, you can color the grid line if you want. So I can just control A everything. So if your company color, any color works anyways, but let's just do something simple and easy on the eyes. So I just have this sky blue. This will be like my background. Next thing is to bring in shapes. We'll have to work with shapes this time around. We'll bring in shapes to draw up our title header or something like that. So can work with shapes. So I just inserted a rectangle. I would insert another one. So insert another one here. Okay, so in this text box, you can type in maybe your name. So HR analyst, HR data overview. Okay, we can call it HR demography overview. I just typed into the cell, and then I'll increase the size. Let's say something like so. This works. Can change the font color. Let's say white. I think white will work in this case. So we have something like this. Next thing, we'll go back to the pivot table. What we're going to do now is that we're going to create charts for each of these pivot tables. So for example, for this first one, I will just go to the insert tab and you see pivot chart. So we can use something like a column chart works. Yes, a column chart works. So I'm okay with this. I say okay. So once I have the column chart like this, I will make it look better. How do I do that? I go to the table. Remember that this table is connected to this chart. I'll right click on it and then I'll say sort from smallest to largest or largest to smallest, anyone that works. So I've just sorted my data. That's why the bars sorted automatically also. I'll remove this X y-axis. I don't need it. I don't need the grid lines also. I'll add data labels. I'll remove this legend, and I'm going to call this or rename it to age distribution. Distribution. Then these things, they are called field buttons. So I will just remove it to make the chart look better. I think this chart works for us. I can reduce the size, make it look better. So it's easy on the eyes. It just shows that we have generation Y people more. Once I'm done okay with the chart, I cut it. I'm using Control X to cut, and I come to the dashboard sheet and I paste it here. So I'll come here and then I'll paste. So I can just drop this here. Yeah, I think this works here. So the next thing I want to do is in this pivot table, I think it would have been advisable to know. Okay, this works. The next thing is the length of service distribution. So I think it would be advisable to know how many, like the gender distribution, even with the length of service range. So I'm going to add gender to that. So I'll put gender under columns, for example. Then I'll do away with this grand total. I don't want to see grand total. So I just want to like categorize my data. If you want to know whether we have more males than females. With this chart, with this table, I'll insert a chart. Charts, I think I should use a column chart. So this column chart works, just shows me proportion of male to female. So I think this works and I'm good with this. Next thing, I'll hide all field settings like I did earlier. Delete this, add a chart title, add data labels, remove the grid lines. And this legend, we can leave it. Yes, I think it speaks to whether it is male or female. So this one speaks to length of service. Length of service distribution. Okay. Length of service distribution. I can reduce the height of this so it doesn't take too much space. I think the data label works. The legend, I can change the location, maybe take it to the top. I can take it to the top like this. And I think it works better this way. Boys, it works. Okay. Another thing, I can also change the style. So for the male, under the design tab, sorry, even on the format tab, even okay. Can change the color of the rectangle. In this case, I don't want it to be this orange. Male, I want male to be blue, and then female should be pink. If I don't have pink, I will look for something very close to pink. So something in this line. I think this works. Then I would Ctrl X, cut my chart and paste it here also. The next thing I'll do is to insert another chart. I hope we're following. Then this one speaks to the department. I will do something like insert a chart. In this case, I want a bar chart. And I say, okay. So again, I'm going to sort it from smallest to largest. Remove the grid lines, just like the way we've been editing other ones. Add data labels. Remove the primary horizontal axis, that's the x-axis. And then also remove this, hide this button. So this one is the department. Also remove this legend. So this works. There are other formatting that we can do, but for now, I think we'll just work with this. So next thing, I'll paste my department. I think I want this to be longer, take up more space since we have a long list. Next thing we're going to work on, there's something we have the location, right? So Control A for location. Now I would love to use a map for this chart, but if I click on map, it wouldn't show because it's a pivot table. So what we'll have to do is that we would, first of all, I would sort this from smallest to largest as I did. Then I would now copy this whole data and paste it here without the pivot table. So now maps will work in this case. It might take a while to come up, but you have something that looks like this. So maps does not work with pivot table in itself, but with charts. So this one will speak to the location of our employees. And this one uses gradients type of coloring style. So I'll just cut this map and then I'll paste it in the dashboard here. So I have something like this over here. Let me close this. I think this works. I reduce the height a little bit. Okay. Is this work? The next thing I would like to add is the dates. So hire dates and employees. So I want to know the number of employees we have hired. What's happening? Okay, there's something that will be what's happening? Overlapping. I know. Okay. I have to do that map again. So what I'll do is I'll copy this data because it was overlapping this one I just inserted, and I'll paste it below it. Control V here. So what I'll do now is that this chart, I'll change its the data. So I have to come back here and choose the range. This is the range. And I say, okay, so I should see it back. Okay, so we're good. So for this higher date, I just want the year. I know that it will be giving you every part of the date, so month, year, and everything, but we don't want that. So we'll uncheck months, we'll uncheck quarter, we'll also uncheck higher date itself. So now we just have the date, sorry, the years alone. So with this year, I want to know how many people we've hired over the years. What year do we have the most hired? So I'm changing this from sum to count. So I say okay. Then so I insert a chart. So I think I should use a line chart for this. I think this works. I remove this axis. This one can stay. This one will hide this. We'll also remove the grid lines. Then we're going to call this number of hires per year. So this is an example. So I cut it and then I paste it here. I can paste it here. Let me see how it will look. Expand it a bit, reduce it a bit. So this works. I think our data is coming together little by little. So another thing we want to add now is we want to add the number of employees. What we have here as 19. So I'll just add a card. Oh, sorry, a shape. Is in Power BI we use card visuals. We don't have that here, so we have to improvise. You can either use a shape or you can use a text box. So anyone works. I think I want to use a text box first. So insert a text box. So I'll just insert a text box. And then I'll type in the formula bar equal to, I will now go to the pivot table sheet and click on this. And then I say enter. It's giving me 119. If yours is giving you error, let me just show you what will happen. There's something we do, get pivot data. So for example, in this pivot table, when you come to pivot table, you see options and settings. If this check get pivot data is checked, so I've checked it, for example, now. If I go back to my dashboard, okay, it's even working. So let me try it again. Let me try what I did earlier before again. So I said equal to, I go to pivot table and I check to see it has changed the formula to get pivot data, pivot table. When I say enter, to give me an error. It does not understand. The get pivot functionality does not work with the equal to sign that we use to connect sheets. So what you have to do in that case is that you either type in the name of the table, or you go to, so let's just delete what we have here. You go to the pivot table you have initially, then pivot table analyze. Make sure under the pivot table you have to, under options, you see a drop down, then uncheck generate get pivot data. You have to uncheck that. So what you do now, so equal to pivot table, and I say this, and I say enter, gives me 119. That's what I want to see. So with this, I can increase the size of the font, make it bold, increase the font size. So let's say we are even making it 20 or something like 190. Sorry, 40 looks okay. And it's bold. We can also insert icons. So under the insert tab, under illustrations, you see icons. So we will go to, I think we should use something like people. People should be able to generate something that we can use. So both male and female. So where do we have people? This might work. I wish we could just get only the head parts. This one also works. Okay. So I'll just go with this. It has inserted it here. So another thing, you have to be conscious of where your cursor is when you want to insert. I knew it was going to give this problem. So I'll just make sure that my cursor is around somewhere I can pick up from. So insert icons, people. Which one did I pick? What is it? Oh, this works too. So something like this works. So I can just put it here. So it just shows me like head counts of the people that I have. Can change this graphics to any color you like. So you can work with something that matches your company color and stuff like that. Another thing, my time is almost up, but let me see how far we are going. Oh, someone is saying I should repeat the map. Okay, Akim has answered. Thank you. I have to, let me just go ahead. I know my time is running up. Please spare me some time, please. Okay. The next thing I would like to add is as slicers. Although this chat looks good, it's coming together nicely, but it's not interactive. So you might want to have some questions that you may want to ask. For example, maybe you want to filter your data by department, by location and whatnot. You might need to add slicers. But before I add slicer, I would like to add, for example, maybe my company logo. So under illustrations, I'll insert picture. So let me look for a picture I can just insert. I think I have something like your BZ logo. Insert it. So it's here, it's over here, but I'll make it sizable. So I think this works. Or it can also be here. So anywhere works. Depends on how you want to design your work. So we have this. I wanted to start creating the slicers. So with the slicers, you go to the insert tab. Or let's go back to our pivot table, yeah? So you click within any pivot table and go to the insert tab and click on slicer. There's a slicer. They're just graphical filters, a heavy filter your data. So for example, I want a slicer for status, for example. So I want to know whether they are contract staff, whether they are employed. I also want another slicer for, let's say, location. I want to filter my data by location. And maybe another one for hire dates. So in this case, I want the year or, yes, the year. And you can also use birth dates. And in this case, maybe you want to filter the data to know the people that are born in so year, births or whatever. So let's just use location. For this, we have location, we have status. So I think we are good with that. Say okay. I've inserted 2 slicers now. So with slicers, there's a limit to how far you can edit and manipulate, but we can do something interesting here. So this slicer, for example, it has this status has 3 options, and I don't want it to look vertically. I want it to be arranged horizontally. So in the column under the slide, once you insert a slicer, you see a slicer tab that speaks that this is where you can edit your slicer. So I just change the column from 1 to 3 here, and I say okay. So it has like made my slicer horizontal, like the options horizontal. I think this works for me. What I'm trying to do here is that I would pick this one, so I can just cut it here and come to my dashboard and paste it here. So see it here. I can now drop it maybe in this my header. So once the person, oh, this, I know, okay, my header is too slim. So there are two ways to go about it. So now that my header is slim, everybody, if you know that the field you're using as your slicer is something that is obvious, like you don't need a header. So if I want to eliminate this status now, I have to go to the slicer tab. Under slicer setting, I click on slicer setting and I'll now say on, and I'll uncheck this display header. So once I'll check this display header, it takes it off. So I have something like this. I think it looks better this way. So now I can adjust my slicer properly to fit into the rectangle that I have. But problem with this now is that once you click, for example, once I click contracts, it will be like I can't click on, it doesn't allow me to like unclick. Even though I double click on it, it still clicks on what I'm referring to. So we have to be careful of that. So what you do in this case, if you want it to select all, you have to hold the control key down and click on all of them to select all back. So that works. I don't know if if you're noticing my screen that once I was clicking on the slicer, it was just this number of hires per year that's changing. And why is that? If you go back to my pivot table, it was on this what's it called? On this pivot table that I created the slicer. So this slicer is linked to that pivot table. But we want this slicer to be dynamic in the sense that once I click retired, it filters the whole data, not just this chart that is here. What you can do then is you have to establish connections. So I've clicked on the slicer. I go to the slicer tab, then you see report connection. This tool comes in very handy. Now it's just telling you once I click on it, it will give you a dialog box like this. It's just telling you the pivot tables are connected to this slicer. So the good thing about it is that if you don't want the slicer to be connected to a pivot table, for example, you can uncheck it. So I don't want it to be connected to the number of employees because I've already filtered it. So I don't check that. I want to be connected to my location, length of service, to my location, to my department, and to the age distribution. So this is the essence of naming your pivot tables. If you don't name your pivot tables, you will have to go back and check what table is pivot table 2 and what table is what pivot table is pivot table 3. So with this, it gives you you're better off. So once I connect them, so let's try it now. I click on contract, my whole data field filters to the number of contract staff we have across board. So this is how it works. Then I'll just use my control key to check all of them. There's something else I wanted to show, and that's linking sheets. So if you are, for example, you work with maybe your kind of data is something that you would share and you will not necessarily be there to like do presentation and stuff. So you want the person to be able to like click on buttons and go to pages to have more information. You can use the link, you can link sheets using the link option. So I'll just explain that. Before I do that, let me just insert an icon. I'll insert 2. So I want an icon that speaks to maybe, let me type analysis. So this analysis is going to take the person to the pivot pivot tables that you've created. Analysis, and also let me see another one for data. So something like a table. I think this works. So I insert the 2 of them. Here's my cursor. Okay, came in a good time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this here, and then I'll put this other one below. Oops. I want to click on this. I'll put this other one below. So what it's going to do is that once the person clicks on this table here, it takes them to the raw data. And then when the person clicks on this table, it takes them to the analysis, like our pivot tables. So how do you do that? You right click, then you see link. So now I want to link this to something within this document. Normally, you can choose somewhere else if it's outside this document, but I want it to be within this document. So once they click on this analysis icon, it takes them to pivot tables. Then I say okay. Then once they click on this table, I right click and I say link. I want it to take them to the raw data. That's our employee data. And I say okay. So now what you notice is that once you hover over it, it's no longer looking like a picture. What's I was trying to explain. So let me go back. You see this, the cursor changes to this hand cursor that tells you like it's clickable now. This icon is now clickable. Can change. I would advise you change the color of the icon before you do any of this linking. And if you don't want to link, if you're just trying to follow me and maybe you're tired of this linking, you can right click. You right click on it and then you remove the link. So you can also do that. So I hope we've done a lot. I wish we had more time. What's happening to this? This might be a refresh issue. Let me just, so to refresh your pivot table, you come to the pivot table itself, go to pivot table, analyze, and say refresh. Oh, I've not brought in this slicer. That reminds me. So let me bring in this slicer. I'll cut it and I'll come here and I'll paste it. Let me say I paste it here. So now I want it to be somewhere here. Let me take this. Oh, I think I have to unlink this thing first. Remove the link first so that I'll be able to move them. I'll just move it up a bit. And I'll take my slicer, I'll move it up also a bit. So this slicer works for me very well. It works here. So if I click on Abuja, it's just this one that is changing. Remember what to do. We just have to connect the slicer with other visuals. So I want it to cut across every of the visuals. So according to the location, I want to know how many people are in what location. So for example, I click on Kano. I just have 2 people in Kano. That's unfair. 2 people in Delta. Okay, so with this, there's still a lot more that we can do. Oh, I think I need to readjust this. Another thing you can also do is to group all your elements within this linking. I don't think it's a good idea every time. I think it's once you are done with all your editing that you should start linking. But I hope we understand and have gotten more understanding to the concept of creating dashboards using pivot tables and this HR data. I'll just remove the link. You can adjust all your charts. And make it look better. So if I zoom in, I think this needs to be adjusted. So I'll just zoom in a bit. Zoom out. And we should have something like, let's see, 80. 70 is fine. 60 works for us in this case. So with something like this, I'm sure when you even project it on a bigger screen, you see more to look bigger. The resolution will be better than what we have here. So this will be the end of my presentation. I hope I was able to explain. I hope you're able to learn a few things, if you need tips and tricks with using pivot tables.
Yeah, thank you very much, Tolu. This session was very knowledge field. I was wishing we could continue, but I think the time is up. Yeah, so it has been really, really knowledge field, talking about functions, date diff, ifrag, the trunk and ifs function. It took us through the pivot table, the charts, the slicers, and also the linking of sheet also. It was really great. So it was really a great session. So thank you very much, Tolu. Really appreciate your time. And also
You're welcome.
we appreciate everyone that has stayed from the beginning of the session till this very time. Yeah, so the link to the recorded, what's it called? The recorded video is going to be posted on our YouTube channel. I posted the link earlier, but I can still paste it again for everyone to see.
Okay.
Yeah, so I've pasted it. Okay, so I think someone has a question. So
yeah, there are a lot of questions I can see. Okay.
So I think we just take a few minutes. So if you have any questions, so she can just go over before we end the session.
Okay, I think I'll just start with the questions I can see from my end. I see someone is saying, how do you arrange the slicer in a single row rather than a list? Okay, so let me just share my screen again for that. So, for example, I'll use this slicer I have here, Control C. I'll just paste it here because this page is not zoomed out. So I have this slicer and it is just in one column. I want it to be in rows instead. So in this column now, instead of leaving it at 1, I can type 4, for example, and it can now like make it horizontal for me. So this is how I did it. So it's at this column. So just change the number and it changes it for you. So that's one of the questions I have. I hope this answers your question. The next question says, okay. If the map doesn't really show the number in the location, is there a way you can cluster dots with a specific color to show the staff location? Wow, that's an interesting question. So for the map visual is not so, I don't want to use the word smart, but it has a limitation to what it can do. So yes, another thing you must know is that if you did not spell the location properly, because it uses Bing, Microsoft Bing, to look for those locations, it would not find it. So with these dots, I don't think it's possible for now, but something that I'm sure in the nearest future they'll be able to provide for us. So, yeah, that's it.
All right,
I don't know if there are any more questions. I think that's all I can see.
Yeah, so just before we end the session, I will be giving out some courses. So Tolu, I would like you to, ask the audience a question. Then anyone who answers correctly, we can then, the person can email us at webinar@your.biz. I'll drop the email. So anyone who gets it correctly will be offered or awarded some of our online courses. So one of our online courses rather. So Tolu, can I ask your question? Yeah.
Okay, just before I ask the question, let me answer your question. So Yomi and Abayomi are dropping some questions. Someone said, can you use color separation in the map? So the map by default comes in what do you call it, gradients. So the color separation might not necessarily work. As I said, it's a bit limited. There are some functionalities that are not yet applicable. If you're in Power BI now, I know that that's something that is achievable. And someone is also asking, can you achieve the dots like in Power BI? Not yet for now. Or there might be a way, but okay, in my opinion, I've not come across a method of doing that for now. So the question I'll have like to ask so that someone will be able to win something good today. Let me think through. So you're welcome. You're welcome. I'm trying to think of a question, but let me look for something very easy and very simple. What is okay? How does the person answer?
No, it's going to be from the chat box also.
Oh, okay. Okay. So first to answer, because it's going to be an easy question. So
All
how
right,
do you I don't know why I feel like okay. How do you remove buttons from a pivot chart? That's my question. So how do you remove
so how do
buttons
you
from
remove a button from a pivot
a
chart?
pivot chart? Yes.
So the
There's
chat
someone,
box is very open.
yes.
If
You can type the
someone is
question. Yeah, someone is raising up their hand. So you can just answer your question in the pivot chart. From the pivot, right click and hide. Nice. So I think I already have 2 winners. Oh, okay. About me, I think you're going to choose who are the winners because
no,
everybody's answering.
okay. No, you judge. You asked the question, so let's know what the right answer is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So from the pivot field, you can use it to remove the button. So I'm just using the slicer setting, you can use it to remove the pivot field. So I think Yomi and Abayomi are, wait, let me be sure. From the pivot field area. Abayomi, pivot field area. I'm not sure. But the person, Yomi Adensin. I think you're right. So you right click and hide. Even if it's not exact, but I think I get you.
Yeah, it's
So
closer.
yes, it's closer. So Yomi Adensin is correct. How many people
Okay,
do you want
so
to give away to?
I think we have just one person. Yeah, so we'll
Oh,
just go with
okay.
Yomi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Congratulations, Yomi.
congratulations, Yomi. Yeah, so Yomi, please send an email right away to webinar at your biz age. I'll drop the email right now. Yeah, so that's it. Kindly send an email to that email so we can. So, okay, sorry, Tolu. So from the question, is Abayomi close to getting it right? Because it seems Abayomi wants to cry.
So he's close, but he just said from the pivot area. So what area exactly?
Abayomi, what area exactly?
Oh, I don't think he's right. He's not right. Sorry, we'll try again
Sorry,
next time.
Abayomi.
In the
Yeah.
next session, I'm sure he'll win something.
All right. Thank you everyone for staying this long. And I hope you enjoyed the session just as much as I did myself. So it's really, really knowledge filled. Yeah, so the Power BI session is going to be holding in like just less than 40 minutes. Yeah, so thank you very much once again. Thank you, Tolu, for your time. We really appreciate you, and thank you everyone for staying. So we'll be ending the session now.